Good morning, it's Mike Stevenson here. So in the video today, we're going to have a look at a new feature added in the Integration Playbooks test framework for Logic App Standard. So here I've got this Logic app we've looked at in one of the previous videos, which is the kind of relatively complex real-world demo. So if we look at the run history here, you can see I've previously triggered this this Logic app, and the workflow executes. It does quite a bit of stuff here, couple of lookups and that kind of thing. So it's a bit more than a kind of just a basic demo. Now, what I might be doing is, so imagine I'm triggering this with Postman, or I'm running it from the portal. And the challenge you have is, if you're doing it with Postman, you can trigger it and then you either get a 202 or a 200 response, but you don't really know what happened inside the workflow. So maybe the first shape just returns a response, and then there's a load of stuff happens after that that Postman wouldn't know about, so you have no idea whether your workflow worked or not. And also, if you're running it from the portal, it's always manually checking what happened. And that whole point of manual testing means it's not repeatable. The next person to pick your workflow up might not know how to run the tests. So that's where the benefit of the automated tests come in. Now, just to save time, if you have to write them all from scratch all the time, there's a little bit of effort to do that. So we've added a feature to try and make it easy. So let's pretend at this point I've run this workflow previously. I know it worked. I'm happy with the path it executed. So what I want to do is generate an automated test to execute this now. It might be the case, if you've seen the previous videos, you know I prefer to use SpecFlow alongside the test framework, because I think the documentation you can add on top of it makes your life a lot easier. But if you want to just use out of the box MS Test or NUnit or something like that, this generation, the code will work just straight away with that. If you want to use it with SpecFlow, you need to do a little bit more work to write your SpecFlow test and then copy the code in. So what we're going to look at is over in VS Code. So actually, let me go back to my portal for a second. So what I do is I get the run ID for this run, which you can get either up in the little info up here, or you can get it just from the ID here. So you can just pick any one of these executions that matches the path that you wanted to have happen. Now, over in VS Code, what I've done is I've created this little test method called generate tests. So if you imagine, I've already pre-configured the app settings for the Logic App Test Manager to connect to your Azure with a service principal and that kind of stuff, which we've covered in previous videos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the build function, which will go and connect to Azure, find the workflow, and then here I'm going to do this generate sample message, and I'm just going to generate sample test. And I'm going to pass in the run ID. So if we go and run that now, so I'm going to want that one. So we just step over here and see, we build the test manager. This is going to go and generate the test. And then we get this result object back, which has two things in it. So if I go into the debug console here, see, we can just write these out. So here's my input trigger message. So what the framework did is it went and looked at that workflow, found the trigger action, and it went and got the code. So if we go back over here, we'll have a quick look. It went and got the input message from it. So we'll let that open up for a second. So you can see on this action there would have been this input message, which is the one it's went and got. So we can write that down here, and then I can also write the sample code. So these are the two properties that give you the generated stuff that you need, and then we can just let that play through. Now, what I'm going to do is over in my files over here, so you can see I've got this sample input here. So I'm going to just copy this XML out of here, paste it over here. Now I'm just going to do a replace on get rid of those carriage return line feeds, and then I might beautify this file as well. So that's my input message for executing this workflow. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code down here. And we'll just copy that into our test project here. And then I'll just tidy this up slightly. And I think I just need to indent that one. So here we've now got our new test, and if we have a quick look through what this is going to do. So I need to pass in, I know the name of the workflow, I'm going to build the Logic App Test Manager. So I need the path to my test input file. So if I just got this copied already, so I can just put the path to the input XML we've just created here. That'll read that file for triggering our workflow. Now actually this one's not a JSON one, it's an XML file. So I'm just going to tweak that bit there. This is going to create the HTTP content, so I've checked my content type. So if I had to do any prerequisites, I could just put them in the top and follow this arrange, act, assert kind of pattern. So I can do any prerequisites at the top if I need to do other stuff, which I may need to do, depends on what your individual Logic app's doing. I'm then going to trigger the Logic app here and then load the workflow run history. And then after that, I'm just going to make a whole bunch of assertions about, did I get a run ID? Did the trigger successfully pass? Check the run status, so we expect it to be successful. And then we're going to go and check all of these actions here and make sure they were all successful. And this will basically check the actions that executed in that workflow as we run through it. So if we go and next we'll just do a .NET build. I need to just run it. I think I've already got some test host.exe already running from the looks of it. I've got my little magic cleanup script there. So if we just do a build again. Just need to, there we go, try that again. You might, just to call out, you might need to add the system.io namespace if you haven't already got it in your file. So if this is a new test, I'll need to refresh my test explorer. And I'm just going to put a breakpoint in over here and we should be able to step through it. So I think it'll be this one here, so we'll just debug this test and have a look through it. Okay, so my test should start running. Go and create the Logic App Test Manager pointing to our workflow, read our input file. We've created an HTTP content that we post to the workflow. We've got a response back, so let's just see a few properties on the response there. Go and load the workflow run history. We know we've got a run ID. We've got our trigger status has succeeded. And then we can just go through and the workflow was succeeded as well. And then we go through and we can just check all these actions were successful from the run history. There you go. So really, once you've got a Logic app that you've previously ran, you can turn that into an automated test. Shouldn't really take you more than 5 minutes to do it, to generate that code and just then have a working test. So hopefully that really accelerates people being able to do automated testing with Logic apps, which hopefully will make it repeatable. It'll stop the problem for a developer picking up a new code base and not knowing how to test it. And hopefully it gets everybody's maturity of their Logic app development, gets it higher, saves you time, makes your code better quality, more robust, and hopefully it helps people out. Thanks for listening. Cheers.